Right, good morning. Thank you for tuning in to my class today. It's a Hatha 2 class. Before we start the class, a few announcements. So I have a new Zoom class on Sundays from 10 to 11 Eastern Time. So if you'd like to register for that class, you go to my website, johnwittyoga.com, and it's just a simple registration, and then you'd have access to Zoom on Sunday. All my classes online are on my YouTube channel, so if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. You'll get all my information as far as like new content, and that's at John Witt. And an update on the masks, 100 masks are now received in San Francisco, so they're being delivered through the Bay Area and California, and we'll continue to make the masks. 10% of the proceeds of all my online classes are going to making more masks. And to donate, you can donate at Venmo or PayPal, and that's John Witt Yoga, and we'll receive the money and then we'll put it towards the mask. So today you'll need a wall, and if you're practicing, like I'm going to give some tips as far as how to learn how to prepare for a handstand, but we're going to practice kicking up today. It's just, the wall is good because then you won't fall over, and it's just, I really feel a handstand is a basic position, and you may not, but it's something that if you're willing and able, or more willing than anything, you'll be able to eventually do it. It's just, there's certain things that some people will need more than the other, and that's why I'll give you a variety of things so that can help get you towards that, being able to at least practice it and then practicing it on your own. So to start, we're going to be in all four position. So when you come onto your hands and your knees, the hands are just underneath the shoulders. And with the hands underneath the shoulders, I'm just going to be moving the weight around to adjust the hands to the wrists. So when I'm more forward, it's going to help load the hands. So for people that can't kick up or can't balance, usually there's not enough weight in the hands. Some people overly kick, right? And then they fall off to one side. That's common. But you just want to get the weight in the hands, and you want to be pushing through the hands and gripping through the fingertips. So the more you can use your hands and the more you push, you're going to start to notice that there's going to be more stability within the shoulders. So the shoulders will have more support to hold you in that line, right? So come back into the middle, and then when you're back in the middle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to load up the hands, but I'm going to lift the heels of my hands up off the floor. So I'm lifting, and I'm lowering, and I'm lifting. The closer the knees are to the hands, the easier these are. So it's not necessarily bad. Try to pick up the heel of the hands at the same time. And it's quite difficult if you don't have a lot of strength in the forearm, but the forearm really will help you. And this exercise is really good to learn how to balance. So come up one more time, come down, come up, and then when you're down, you're going to turn the hands out to the sides. So as I'm moving laterally, one hand's getting more load, and then by getting more load, it's going to help with, again, being forward and that overhead position. So come back into the middle, and when you come back into the middle, just bring the back of your right hand to the floor, but make it into a fist. And then bring the right hand down, and then bring the back of the left hand into a fist. So eventually, these are very good to help with like adjusting the wrist, because the wrist gets a lot of compression. So eventually it can be a push-up position. So just turn the hands back towards the knees, and when you're turning the hands back towards the knees, I'm going to sit the weight back, and then as I sit the weight back, this is a little bit more progressive. I'm going to bend the elbows, which is even more, but just again, you have to play around with how much load you're bringing into the hands. So come back into the center, and then bring the hands forward and lift up into a plank. And then in a plank, continue to push through the hands, pack the shoulder, round through the shoulders, right? And then as you're rounding through the shoulders, what we're going to do is try to do some scapular push-ups. So if I need to, I can come down on my knees. So a scapular push-up is dropping the chest in between the shoulders and then pushing. but if you can, start to do them in a plank position. So keep the weight forward, lower the chest in between the hands, and then push through the hands. So real slow on the descent. And it's not that it's quick, but it can be a little faster when you come up. So you're gonna lower and push, and then lower, pushing back up. One more time, you're gonna lower, and then pushing back up. So come back onto the knees and sit back onto the feet if you can. Now, I've mentioned this before in other classes. I could put something behind my knees, a stick. I did it in the last class. Put my shin behind my knee. That's a very good way of sitting back. But when you're sitting back, I'm gonna try to, with some strength here, I'm gonna try to lift my knees up off the floor. The first one's usually the most difficult one to get the legs to come up, because it's the engagement that you might be lacking. So you're trying to pull up below the navel, and then come down. Bring the hands forward. Lift up into a plank again, push through the hands. So with handstanding or being on your hands, it's okay to turn the hands out. You know, that's not the most, it's not the easiest way to balance, right? But you may need to do that for a while. Say you're working with an injury or something like that, right? So you're gonna lower, I'm gonna lower all the way, I'm gonna bring blocks into play. So my blocks will be to support a movement of my arms, which will help with the shoulders. So I'm gonna come forward with the blocks. I'm gonna come into a plank, and I'm gonna slowly descend to the floor. As I descend, I'm gonna take my arms forward. So turn the thumbs up towards the ceiling, have the head down, and then what you're gonna do is lift the arms up off the floor and take the arms outside of the blocks, bring them up, keep the ribs in, and then bringing the arms down. Take it up again, bring them out, bring them down, take them up, bring them down. I'm gonna do two more. So when you're here in this down position, try to bring less weight out of the rib cage, because the ribs are gonna wanna move forward when you're in an overhead position. So keep moving this in, lift them up, take them out, bring them up again, bring them down. One more time, bring them up. So try to lift through the arms, which is pretty difficult to do, and then take it out, bring it down. One more time, taking it up, rotating through the shoulder, and then bringing it back down. Have the arms just underneath the shoulders and pull yourself forward in space. So, even though we're back bending, you can keep the ribs from flying forward. And that'll help when you come up into a higher position for Cobra. So we're gonna do some Cobra push-ups. When you're coming up, initially try to use more of your back rather than your arms. And if you're using your arms and you don't have a lot of strength, that's good because it'll help with your pushing, right? So bring the hands underneath you and curl up into a low Cobra. Right? And bring yourself forward and down. Curl up. If you're ready to come up higher, you certainly can do that. Bring it down. And again, as you're coming up with the upper body, get more and more familiar or a feel for the floor, because that's what you're essentially doing when you're balancing. Bring yourself forward, bring yourself down. Two more times, we're gonna come up. Tailbones down, pubic bones lifting out. Bring yourself forward and down. And then last time, come up, bring yourself up. All right? And then tuck the toes, lift the hips, go back up into a down dog. As you pull back with the hips, you could pedal the legs out. I'm turning my heels out a little bit. I'm pushing through the hands. And then I'm gonna make it a bit shorter. And with a little bit of a shorter stance, right, I'm gonna pull back through the hips and lift up. So I'm gonna come forward, planking, more like a pike, and then back. So I'm gonna make it a bit shorter, coming forward. Again, you'll see where you favor your weight in your hands. Go back, Index fingers are straight forward for those of you that can do that. Bring yourself forward, shoulders over the hands, grip the floor, pulling in, and then come back. Now when you come back, walk the hands back, sit into a low squat if you can. And in a low squat, heels can be elevated. Still a good squat if you were up on the toes. But you could put something underneath your heels. All these things are really good to do. But it's just a matter of, it's obviously too much pressure in the knee. That's why you can use a stick or a blanket behind the knee to sit and to squat, right? So we're gonna go to the wall now. And then when you go to the wall, what I'm gonna do is, it's just basically so you don't slip and fall. So I have a hardwood floor. If my floor is not too slippery, that's a good surface. And I've mentioned this before, but you want to eventually learn how to do a handstand on any kind of surface, because then you can do it at any time. A yoga mat is really great to start with, but eventually, practicing even on concrete is safe, and it's a great way, right? So when you come forward, you don't want to be too close to the wall, because when you kick up, your back can hit the wall, and you just want to get familiar with kicking up initially. So again, hands are just underneath the shoulders. And when you're doing this, you're pushing through the hands, you're rounding through the back. So maybe you just want to watch if you've never seen this before. So you're pushing through the hands. Now, I could take the leg up and do that, but you could also keep it down. So I'm going to go on threes. So I'm going to kick up really light. Again, the weight has to be forward in the shoulders in order to balance. So when you go, if I'm back here, there's no way I can balance. It's very hard to do. So you gotta bring the weight forward, just like those pike presses, and then kick up and bring it down. The really pulling or resisting on the way down will definitely help with you eventually balancing and getting stronger and being able to do this, right? So just come down onto your feet, just rest. Again, maybe you only did one, maybe your kick wasn't that high. I'll show it a little bit differently, just so that maybe it's like more of a baby jump for you. And not that that's bad, it's just you have to start somewhere. So push through the hands, round through the shoulders. So those of you that don't have flexibility, the bending in the knees is much easier, right? So when you bend the knees, I'm gonna take my left leg up, I'm gonna load up the leg, and these are more like a crouch position. So I'm gonna press forward, right? And you just getting more and more familiar with bringing your weight forward. It's, again, stacking your bones, having that alignment makes a world of difference. So just come back into a squat and interlace the fingers and just lightly rotate the hands to alleviate any kind of pressure in the wrists. So another good way, I had the hands on the floor, I'm going to make my hand into a fist, and then I'm just pulling back a little bit with my right hand on my left. So if you can't do this on the floor, the wall is too hard, this is really essentially the same thing. So make the hand into a fist, the right hand, and then pull back. And you'll really see which wrist is less pliable, right? Like, it's pretty obvious for me, my left side, it could use more work. So I have a tendency, I'll work on my left side more than that. So come up, and I'm gonna show you a different forward bend at the wall. So my hips are at the wall, my legs are forward. And with my legs forward, I'm gonna come forward over my legs, so my hips are back, and then I could reach for my feet. Now it's initially, because this is the first time we're forward bending, just be a bit more passive and push through the feet. And as you get into it, if you want to pull on the feet, you can. If you really want to get close to the legs, you can wrap the arms around. So you could grab forearms or elbows. So I'm really trying to get more length and extension as opposed to rounding. So if you want to focus on this approach, I'm extending. So I'm not just getting in close, which is again not bad. Like if you look at some more intermediate to advanced poses, your back is rounded. You know, it's just those of you that have a history of back pain, you want to extend more. You don't want to be fully down. So I'm going to come in one more time. I'm going to wrap the arms around, and then as I wrap around, I still want to pull my legs to my chest. Like I want to get more in, and then when I get more in, just a matter of you know, again, more intermediate to advanced forward bending. So keep extending the chest forward towards the feet all this time. Remember when we had our ribs at the floor and we were lifting the arms off the floor? So now you're doing the same thing as you're trying to move your rib cage in more as opposed to just letting it jump forward. So it's a bit of a play in both ways, right? So when you come out of this, just bend the knees, lift yourself up, and come up to standing. So just give it a few breaths, standing nice and tall. So I say this a lot in my basic classes, is really understanding the weight in your feet is no different than understanding the weight in your hands. So if I have too much weight forward in my feet, I have too much weight in my lower back. If I have too much weight in the heel of my hand, that's a reason why people can't kick up all the way. So you really eventually want to be right in the middle, and that'll help. So I've been working with a Coccyx stretch, and some of you have expressed that it's difficult. So but before we do that is just have the hands on the knees and just circle the knees in a circular motion. As you circle around, it'll help support the knee and being in a fuller range of motion, right? And then circle around the opposite direction. So it can be really small. I've done this before. You can palpate the musculature around the knees. And that if the tissues do not move fluidly, you know, it hurts the knee. So, you know, adjust your tissues around the knee and you'll be able to bend the knee more. So I'm going to fold up my mat a little differently. So when I fold it in half, and you might have to fold it another time, right? I'm going to do that 2 times just so that you have a little bit extra lift. And then when you fold that over, your heels are elevated. So this, as you fold it over, my heel's on the fold rather than just having my foot flat. Now my right foot's at the wall. And you could use a blanket or a pillow underneath the heels, so you don't have to flip the mat. It can be a lot of different ways, but I'm gonna sit. I'm pushing through my right foot. I'm gonna sit, but don't sit as low as you can initially. So just kind of play it out, see where you're at. I've said this before. Warrior 2, that's a different position, but when you get into like splitting, side splits, front splits, you're basically going out of that line. Then bring yourself up. We do 5, so you can sit back. So I'm doing these kind of slow. You're doing them faster. You can do a higher repetition, right? So I'm turning my upper body to the right. I'm bringing myself back up. So it should feel a lot easier on the knee, the back knee, by having the heel up. And then you can bring yourself up. You know, again, it's morning. If you're practicing in the afternoon, in the evening, it's much easier to practice. So sometimes you have to be creative and adapt so that you can practice better. Bring yourself up and then bring yourself down again. Now I'm turning my upper body to the right. I could have my arms out wide. You know, I'm going to hold this for 5, 4, 3, 2. I'm not sitting as deep as I can. And then 1. I'm going to come up. Now I'm going to switch my feet. So I'm going to pull my mat a little bit away from the wall that I'm facing. And then as I'm up, again, my front foot's at the wall. My back foot can turn out and my heels are elevated. So sit into this. As you sit into this, broaden the thighs, lift the chest. You know, the first one, I'm really just kind of playing it out, seeing how my body is in space, as opposed to just being as dynamic or as expressive as I can. So push through the back foot, lift yourself up, sit back into it. As you sit into it, you're trying to widen the legs and turn the upper body to the wall, the foot that's at the wall. Bring yourself up, bring yourself down, elevate the upper body. So I need more tailbone down in positions. You might need the same. Bring yourself up. Sit into this. It's great because you can really see which leg is weak. Bring yourself up. And then the last one, extend the arms out, push the thighs apart, elevate your chest, right? Push through the right foot and bring yourself back up. So turn. You can take yourself. Just try squatting just because the mat's rolled up. Try squatting with the heels elevated. So if you've never tried that before, it's already set up. It's a good thing to do. You can stretch out your calf muscles with this too, which is, I feel most people need, especially if the forward bending is difficult for yourself. And then you can stand back up. You can undo the mat. As you undo the mat, we're gonna go back into having the hands out in front again. So with the hands out in front into a plank, you can have the blocks forward again. We're gonna do another round of lifting the arms to help open the shoulders and the chest. So come forward into plank, and then in plank, I'm just gonna bring the weight forward, and I'm gonna come up onto my fingertips of my right hand, and then lower, and then lift. So those heel raises that we were doing before, this is similar. I find these a little bit easier. So just another thing that you can use. You can come up on the fingertips, you can lower, come up on the right hand, and lower. Try to keep the weight forward again. Lift up on the fingertips, and then lower, and then hollow out, because this is, again, your handstand. Then lower down, all the way down. Take the arms forward, and with the arms forward, turn the thumbs up again. So the thumbs are turned up. As the thumbs are turned up, keep the ribs in, lift the arms away from the floor, take them out, bring them down, take them up again, and in, bring them down, take them up. So again, if I'm doing really slow work, maybe you're not doing so many repetitions. Lift the arms, keep the ribs in, bring it down, bring it up, bring it out, bring it down. 2 more times, bring it up, bring it down. Last time, bring it up. So again, don't let the ribs press into the floor. Keep them in. Take the arms out, bring them down, bring them back up, bring them in, and bring them down. Come back up into a Sphinx pose, and then look high over the left shoulder. Pull yourself forward in space. Look high over the right. Look center. Right, come down. Just gonna do a couple Cobra Push-Ups. So curl up into a low Cobra. Bring yourself forward, bring yourself down. One more time, come up. And then again, use your awareness as far as what you're feeling, and learn if it's better to come up more. Use your glutes, lift through the pubic bone, broaden through the shoulders, extend through the thoracic. When you come down, come forward, come down, bring yourself down. Have your hands just underneath your shoulders, tuck the toes, press the floor away from you, and just come up somewhat slow if you can. So push through the hands, lift to the height of the elbows, press yourself back up, pack the shoulder, really push through the hands, round through the shoulders, slight rotation in the shoulders, and then come down on the knees, and then when you come down on the knees, sit back onto the feet again. So sit back, take the arms into a cactus position, and take the hands forward. So bringing the hands forward, full rotation in, taking them up, bringing them down, bringing them back up, bringing them forward and down, and then back up into a cactus position. So we're gonna do some more handstand work at the wall, but say you just, the first time was more than enough, work on side plank. So side plank, and I've mentioned this before, is use a block behind the forearm, and then you'll really get that line. That's really what you really need. We'll do some of that at the end. So how I did the class today is that, think of like, if it's really exhausting to do a handstand, you want to do it earlier. You obviously want to do a warm-up, but you want to do it earlier because it's so taxing. Some people, they exhaust themselves before they ever do it, and that's a big reason why they can never do it. They save it too late, or their teachers or whatever. Not that there's a good way of doing it that way too, because you're doing the conditioning work first. But if you're really working more on the element of balancing, you want to do it earlier, and then eventually, then save your condition stuff more towards the middle or the end of your practice. So again, I'm gonna use the blocks just to give myself a reference too. You don't have to use them. If you're new to this, don't use the blocks because they can get in your way and frustrate you. So I'm just gonna have my blocks just behind the heels of my hands. And then when I bring myself up, I want to round through the shoulder. This is probably one of the most important parts. If you're not using your shoulders, it's very difficult to balance. It's so much harder to do. So you want to push, and then see how I'm rounding my back. I'm going to keep that, and then I'm just going to lightly kick, right? Right, and then coming down, and that could be more, like again, if you're doing more, it's more condition work. If you're doing less, again, it's how you're controlling yourself. But I'm going to do another set. So this time again, I'm going to do it where my knee is bent. I'm going to pull in, I'm going to keep the weight forward. Starting with the feet down might actually be easier for you to eventually come up. And again, see what's easier for you to get more familiar, and then work on something more complex, right? So this might be actually more difficult. So initially, just start with what's easier and then more complex. So just come back into the squat again and interlace the fingers. Move the hands around. And then come into a forward bend, turn yourself so that we're going to take the feet out laterally. So when you take the feet out laterally, take them out nice and wide, and just lift the thighs up and out. So lifting the thighs out, creating more width within the lower back. As you lift out, you'll be able to take the legs out wider. After a few seconds or a few contractions, you can start to squeeze in. As you squeeze in, also too, this will help with taking the legs out wider. So as you're taking the legs out, what we're going to do is turn the feet out, and I'm going to sit into my right side. So if I keep my foot flat, it's more inner thigh. If I'm on my heel, it's more hamstring, right? Bring the weight into the left foot, load up the right leg. We're 30 minutes into class. Should be warmer to do this. Bring the weight in. Bring the weight into the right leg. Use the hands. Bring the weight into the left leg. Again, it's not necessarily better or right if the foot's down or the foot is up. It really depends on what's obstructing you in these in the tissues, right? Bring the foot back into center, and then toe heel the feet in a little bit closer. Bring yourself up. When you come up, what we're going to do is do it in a loaded position. So take the legs out, not incredibly wide. Think of like not 80 to 90% of your capacity. Squeeze the legs in, You can make your hands like fist. I'm getting closer to the wall. So if you were at the wall, this is a good way, because you might slip too much. Obviously that is not good. You want to be stable. Great thing to do in sneakers. Bring the hands down, and then when you bring the hands down, try to make the stance a little bit wider. Right? Now, if you have some stability, bring yourself up. When you're up, it's really a lot more work in keeping yourself up. So when you're doing this on your own, start with 10 seconds, build it up to 20, 30 seconds, bring your hands down. As you bring your hands down, what we're gonna do is bring the feet a little bit closer, and then we're gonna turn the feet out. Come up. So we're gonna go into the loading the legs. So I'm gonna turn my left foot out. I'm gonna sit into my left side. Of course, use a chair or your hands on the floor, bring yourself up. So you're like, oh, that mat tip really helped where your heel was elevated, or a blanket, use that. Bring yourself up. Again, you don't have to sit as low as you can. Again, that has its place. Bring yourself up. Sit into the right side. As you sit into the right, get yourself upright. And then what you're gonna do is bring your hands behind you and sit yourself back down. So as you sit down, I'm gonna bring my right leg in into more like a hurdler stretch. And I'm gonna organize my pelvis so that I can move it forward in space. I'm gonna bring myself forward towards my left foot. So as you come forward towards the left leg, you can take the arms out wide. Not bad to hold the foot, pull on the foot. Bring yourself up. As you bring yourself back up, load up the right leg, sit into the left side. Use your hands, of course, but really resist just falling. If you're not using your hands like I did, then bring the left leg in and extend the right leg forward. And then as you're extending the right leg forward, bring yourself forward in space. So I so need this on my left side, so my right side or left side doesn't rotate in as well. So and I actually need more work on my right hamstring. So this is really, see which side actually needs more work. So when you're forward, keep lifting the right leg, into the chest, into the upper body. So lift it up towards the face. And then you can bring the arms down and you can bring yourself up. And then when you bring the left leg forward, you may have to pitch yourself forward, but you gotta be careful with your left knee. So before you use your hands or just your legs to come up, you wanna feel the floor. Just like your handstand, you wanna feel the floor as far as your connection, and then bring yourself back up. When you come up, just bring the feet back into a neutral position, just a standing position. You can turn, we're gonna be more forward again. Inhale, take the arms up overhead and fold forward into a forward fold. Once you fold forward, you can step back into a plank. Slowly resist the floor, bring yourself down, all the way down. This time around, you're not gonna use the blocks, but you're gonna take the arms into a W position. So have the arms into a 90-degree angle. Make your hands into fists if you want. And then lift the arms up and off the floor. Broaden the shoulders, broaden the back. Bring the arms down. Bring them up. Bring them down. Bring them up again. So you could try to lift the arms higher, but if they're all really, really tense, just relax. And then in that moment that they relax, then start to lift the arms up a little bit more. You'll get more width in the shoulders. And then bring the arms all the way down. Come up onto the forearms. Lift through the chest, pull yourself forward in space. So getting yourself forward. Right, and then bring yourself down so that your hands are underneath you. And then push through the hands and lift yourself up into a low cobra or a high cobra. And not that I don't like up dog, but I like that there's more leverage in a cobra. That's why I use more cobras. I like up dogs for like, more like a flowing type of class. Bring yourself forward, bring yourself down. Curl yourself up into a low cobra or a high cobra. Lift through the sternum. Measure yourself to whatever you're seeing. So if you can see all the way over to your left side, but you can't see to your right, it's telling you to turn your body to the right because you're off center. Bring yourself forward, bring yourself down, and then have the hands just underneath the shoulders, tuck the toes, lift straight up into a plank, and go back up into a down dog. Go all the way back up into a down dog. And in a down dog, you can widen the heels, you can widen the thighs, push through the hands. You really push through the hands, just like your handstand, and then come down on the knees and sit back on the toes. So sit back on the toes. Bring the arms back into a cactus position. Bring the hands forward. More of an internal rotation. Bring the hands up. Bring them forward, bring them down. Wide shoulders, wide upper back. Bringing your arms up. So depending on what your practice is, you might be like, oh, this is very slow, it's very methodical. When you're learning, you can bring the arms out. When you're learning something like a new skill, I like it this way again, as opposed to just piling on volume. And it'll be a little bit more, it's like meditation. You'll see more of like what it is that you can do to improve these types of positions. So I'm going to come up onto my toes or on my heels. I'm going to do an asymmetrical back bend. So I'm up I'm leaning back, right? I'm going to reach for my left foot. I'm going to reach for my right foot. It really doesn't matter that you're grabbing the foot, but you're getting more into the thoracic. You can bring yourself up. You can reach. Bring yourself up. Reach for the right side. Bring yourself up. Lower the feet if you can. Again, tailbones down, pubic bones up, glutes are working. It's really not important to grab the foot, but if it's there and it's easy to grab, great. Bring yourself up. Look to the right side. Turn through the chest. You still want to keep lifting up. You don't want to you feel any kind of discomfort in your back. Don't go as low as you are. Reach for the left side. Lift yourself up away from the connection of the hand into the floor of the foot. Bring yourself up. Reach to the right side. So you're really twisting in this type of way, which is, I've said this before, is really the majority of your spine. And bring yourself back up. And then sit, if you can, in between your feet. So I'm sitting in between my feet. As I'm sitting in between the feet, I'm hugging into my hips. I'm pushing down through the shins. So really good for the front of the body. I'm doing this more like just to complement the overhead position. So the back bending, especially if you don't have a good overhead position, back bending will help with that. Again, especially if you don't have a lot of flexibility in the shoulders or in the upper back, right? You can bring the arms down and then come off of the feet or come out of and then take the legs into a wide position. So when I take my legs out into a wide position, I may want to sit on something higher. Like I may want to be, on a higher surface so that I can really extend the legs out. So I'm gonna push the thighs apart, right? I'm really driving the legs apart. And as you're doing that, you're gonna notice that the stance becomes wider. So if you take photos of yourself or you videotape yourself, you start to see like, wow, I can really take my legs out wider. So I'm gonna lift my hips up with my hands. I'm gonna lift my hips up off the floor and then I'm gonna push the legs apart. So I'm working more on getting your legs to open more than anything in this. And it's actually more difficult, again, on the inner thighs when you're doing this. So I'm gonna go out to my left side, but I wanna keep myself extended. So it's not bad to get lower, but notice if you're doing it from your back. You want to be doing it, from an extended position. And then come forward, but on an angle. We're going to go all the way around like a clock. But I'm going forward, on an angle. And then I'm going to come back more into the middle. But when I'm back into the middle, I'm really starting to push the legs apart. So we could just sit here, but you can really work at getting your legs apart, and that'll help you more. Because I've done long holds before, and it's great. But in terms of progressing, it didn't do as much for me. You could try it. You could do start with holding these positions for 1 minute to 2 minutes, but spread it out through the day. And then you can up, by the week, you can up it to, 2 minutes. That's, obviously 6 minutes per day. And then you can up it, but I wouldn't go past 10 minutes, something like that. But I have. But again, it really didn't do much for me. More active work. So I'm going to come up, I'm going to go to the right side, and then I come up to the right. But this is what we're going to try to do, is see how my hands are turned out? I'm going to try to come forward, but press, and you got to time this right. So I'm pushing through the hands to come up, and then I'm getting more of my legs to be loaded. But when I'm pushing through, I'm also using my arms to get my legs to be wider. And then when you do come down, bring yourself down. We're going to go all the way to the left side. When you go to the left, you can hold the left foot. You can support the head with the left hand. Right? There's many layers to this. It's just maybe you're ready to get lower. Then I'm going to take my right hand behind my head. I'm going to turn my upper body to the right, and I'm driving my right leg out to the right. So, and the knee could be bent, the hip could be off the floor, right? You could reach for the right foot and then grab the right leg with the left hand. And I have very long arms, so they kind of get in the way sometimes. So sometimes I'll do this on an elevated surface where my arm isn't in the way and my shoulder's not in the way. And then I can get lower. So you can lean back. As you lean back, then you'll open up the right side more. And then bring yourself back up, and then you can come up to the right side. As you come off to the right, you can grab the right foot. You can get lower. You can reach with the left hand. And then, like I said, as you get your legs to be wider, it's more difficult to grab the foot. So say you're like, oh, I'm not improving. You're improving, but it's actually because you're improving in such a way that it actually makes it more difficult, because then the foot's, like I said, it's further away from you. So I'm leaning into my right side, but I'm turning to my left. I can grab my left thigh with my right hand. I can pull through. So if I was wearing pants, I could really pull on my fabric to get my right shoulder to be more forward and my right shoulder to be down. And there's lots of layers to this, so it takes some time to work through it. Right? Bring yourself back up. When you come back up, you can bring your feet into a Baddha Konasana position. So feet together, knees wide. And with the feet together, I'm just going to elevate my hips and push my knees apart. So sitting nice and tall, getting the knees to move apart, getting myself to lift up. And then as my legs move apart, right, I'm stressing more of the inner thigh way up at the hip. And it's fine if you were down. But when you're on an elevated surface, there's more of a focus on the inner thighs, right? You're getting more into the inner thigh and the hip. Bring yourself back down, and then when you bring yourself back down, bring your right hand and your right thigh and push into the thigh and resist it. So lift the thigh up into the hand. Not incredibly strong, right? But lift it enough where you can really start to feel how you're adjusting, again, the connective tissues surrounding the pelvis. You can bring the right hand off of the thigh, bring the left hand into the left thigh. You can push into it. You can resist it. and then bring the hands back beside you, and then push the knees apart. So pushing the legs apart, lifting yourself up. And then what you're going to do is bring the feet forward. Just, if you can, try to come up into a squat with one hand. Go back down with the right hand. Come back up into a squat. Come back into the left side. Come back up. Bring your right hand back. So, you might notice that how you always squat or you always come up off the floor always the same way. That's why I've done that. So push through the feet and bring yourself back up to standing. And I'm just so that you can see the difference in your Coccyx stretch, because that's probably what's more difficult for some of you. So taking the legs out, take them out nice and wide. As you take them out wide, turn the feet out. And again, you could use an extra, say you really have a lot of tightness, start with a really light weight, 5 pounds, something like that. And then you can really load up the hips more and adjust the hips. But you want to side on the side of caution rather than just loading up, because you can tear things. Bring yourself back up. Bring the weight into the right side. Sit down. Really work your thighs apart. Push down through the right foot. Bring yourself up. Go to the left side. Keep yourself upright. It's a little different than what I was doing with the wall. You're more in the middle of your squat. It's a one-legged squat. Bring yourself up. Bring yourself to the right side. Broad legs, broad thighs. Right? And then bring yourself up to standing. As you come up to standing, just bring the feet in a little bit closer. Step the feet back in. You're going to go back to the wall. Do one more forward bend. So have your hips at the wall, have your feet forward. So I like to repeat things so that you can maybe see the difference. So I'm going to come forward over my legs. As you come forward and you come down, you could grab feet like I am, shins. You could wrap the arms around the legs. You can pull in. As you pull in, again, it's more of an internal way. I'm using my arms, but really not as much as, I'm really not using them that much. I'm really just trying to use more of the strength of my hip flexors to bring myself over my legs and over and down, right? So take 3 deep breaths, breathe in, breathe out. And then what you can do is bring your hands down. Bend your knees if you need to. Say it was heavy in your back. Bring your hands up. Bring yourself all the way up. Stand back up. And then when you stand up, go back up against the wall. This is a good test to do in terms of handstanding. Is you're going to take the arms into a cactus position. And then when your arms are in a cactus position, keep your ribs from falling too far out. And then slide the arms up. You can do this on the floor too. Right, where you're on your back. As you slide the arms up, keep the ribs in. And as you keep the ribs in, then over time, you're going to really kind of see difficult areas to elevate the arms all the way up. So work on keeping the arms back, work on keeping the ribs in, then sliding the arms up. That's, for me, that's still a very difficult thing to use. So slide the arms back down, keep the ribs in, bring the arms all the way down. So come into a seated position, and in a seated position, just take the right leg over the left. So right is over left. I'm going to sit upright as much as I can. I'm going to push my leg into my right leg into my left. But I'm also, from time to time, going to try to pull the leg to my chest. So getting the leg in. So when you do a lot of side split stuff, like we did today, the outside of the hip gets really strong, but also gets really tight. So like with a martial artist, they're doing side kicks and whatnot, which is great. It's great conditioning work, but it really gets tight, and you want to counter it, right? I'm going to slide the left leg forward. I'm going to take the right leg forward. I'm going to take the left leg on top. I'm going to pull in. And just let's say this side isn't as flexible, you know, take your time. If you're ready, you can get closer to that. Right? And I'm pushing my left leg into my right. And then also from time to time, I'm thinking that I'm trying to get my left foot to my right shoulder. So I'm using my right hand to kind of help with that. I don't want to use more of my arm. I want to think of the arm as like spotting me or assisting me to do that, right? Something you could add as well. So bring the left leg, bring the right leg forward, bring the left leg forward. Just going to do a couple more, just different variations of that. But I'm going to need my mat. So take your right leg on top of your left, pull the left leg in, and then hold the right foot with the left elbow, crease of the elbow, push the outside of the foot, and then as you're pulling in, try to elevate through the upper body. So different than just doing pigeon, not that I don't like that, but it's a little bit more active, you know, in the arms. I'm gonna slowly lower down, right? Lowering down. There's that point that you drop, right? We wanna slow that down, we don't wanna drop as much. So I'm pulling in. I'm gonna lean back with my body weight to expose more of my hip. So if you have an interest of doing leg behind the head, right, this is obviously a good prep for that. You're leaning back, right? Just for the sake of time, I'm gonna come up, but you could hold this longer, right? I'm gonna swing my left leg up and roll up, and then bring my right leg forward and down, and then I'm gonna pull my left leg in. So to get it up, because you might need some help, that's why I like supporting the foot with the leg, the right leg, and then I'll wrap my right arm around, I'll cradle the leg, the left side, and I'm trying to keep it up as I keep my back straight. So let's say that the rolling down new to you, right? You could do it with a bent knee, right? That might help you more. But the leg should counter, the right leg should counter whether it's straight or bent. So when you're coming down, control through the abdomen, just like Navasana, right? So keep it in, keep pulling in, and then slow it down. And as you know, the connection that I just did is really part of holding your weight in positions. So push the foot out into the arm, lean back with the upper body. Just I'm not trying to move back, I'm just letting my weight do the work. And then as I do that, then I'm adjusting more of my hip and more of my lower back. So not important that the head gets down, but it may for you. And then swing the right leg up and bring yourself up, and just bring the soles of the feet together. Push the knees apart, elevate the upper body, push out through the thighs, and then you can lower the hips. So I had a really great time. I'm going to give you a short relaxation, but I had a great time. Thanks so much for the support. I really love it. I'm getting such sweet messages and emails, and it's nice to see people. So I really, really appreciate all the support, so thank you. So lie back on your back. As you lie back on your back, you can relax your hands, you can relax your feet. So as you practice more, get a sense of what you actually need. You could do a supported back bend, you could do an inversion, right? You could do all these things. It's just, with a 60-minute class, I don't want to fit everything in, because it's, my opinion, not the best way to practice. So let your skeletal system be heavy, let it relax. Relax your face, your jaw. Let yourself go into full restoration. And if the mind is still active, right, the floor over a course of time will start to settle you. So close the eyes if you can. And then as you close the eyes, you reach a deeper state of relaxation. be somewhere. So if that's the case, you can bring awareness to your hands, back into your toes. You can wiggle, you can swallow to help yourself with your breathing. And then if you are coming up, you can bring the knees into the chest, you can roll yourself up, you can sit nice and tall, you can sit nice and upright. I say this all the time, get in the habit of sitting on something higher, especially if you're really wanting to improve your posture. You could have your palms facing up. You can slide the hands back. You don't have to bring the hands together, but you can. Just adjust your thanks. Again, I had a great time today. I hope you liked the class. Let me know how it's going, and hopefully I'll see you on Sunday at 10 o'clock Eastern time. And by seeing you, again, I can help you more in practice. It's great.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I hope you like the class.
Come here.